Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw. I'm here with a familiar face if you've been reading Insider Travel Report recently, especially on Monday, J.D. O'Hara, who is the president and CEO of Internova. And if you haven't heard of what Internova is, well, you better go back and read our Monday issue. JD was the president of Travel Leaders Group, which I'm sure you've heard of. But now, in a new reorganization, Travel Leaders Group is now part of Internova, and we're going to find out about why this is happening and why now on Insider Travel Report. Now, JD, first of all, we'll start with the big news. How have you really restructured Travel Leaders Group, and what exactly is Internova?
Sure. First of all, thanks, James. Nice to see you. Travel Leaders Group, effectively what was known as Travel Leaders Group, is realigning to create effectively a new parent company, which is Internova Travel Group. And this is really an effort to enhance the support and service to our advisors, agencies, and travelers. And so this really is a strategic reorganization that's grouping similar brands into a portfolio of distinctive travel divisions, and each will have a specific area of expertise. And
yeah, we're gonna go over one by one of these different expertises, but I guess I'm curious about the strategy, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Is Internova effectively just a holding company for all of these different divisions, or you are going to actively market the name Internova, to both the travel community and maybe even to consumers?
Yeah, so Internova is effectively a holding company, like you said. Travel Leaders Group had amassed a lot of resources at the kind of Travel Leaders Group parent company level, and we determined that a better strategy is going to be to service each of the business divisions, is to put those resources directly over and above each of the portfolio and what we're now calling divisions of Internova. So Internova, a holding company, will have a limited set of resources that will kind of oversee all of the functional resources in each division, but each will have its own dedicated set of resources, and we think this is going to be a better strategy to better, again, service the agents and the advisors, the agencies, and the travelers themselves.
Now, will you have a website for Internova Travel Group, or
yeah, all the plans for the integration are underway. So as of right now, it's an announcement only, but we'll see the steps take place over the coming weeks and months. But it's difficult for me to remember the name Internova, and the more I say it, the more I get used to it, and I suspect that'll be the same across the industry. But I see it more as an industry brand, less as a consumer brand, to answer your question.
Well, the history of Travel Leaders as a name is years ago when I remember when Mike Batt first formed Travel Leaders. It wasn't called Travel Leaders. It was the old Carlson Leisure Group. And then he bought, I guess, another agency called Travel Leaders and then adopted the name for the entire group. And I guess one of your concerns was that the Travel Leaders name was a little confusing because you had Travel Leaders Group overarching, then you had Travel Leaders Network. And I didn't know if that was one of the factors in making this strategic decision or not. Is it?
For sure, one of the factors, certainly as it leads to the Travel Leaders brand itself. So I was involved in back in those days coming out of Carlson, and history is always 2020. Hopefully not like the year 2020, but vision's 2020. So at the end of the day, we came out of Carlson that had always used, the network members had always used the Carlson brand as far as their brand was concerned in the placards on the stores. And so Travel Leaders was an unknown name, and we bought a small business in Florida. We rebranded it Travel Leaders, and that was the name for the network members. To support that kind of new name at the time, we named the parent company Travel Leaders Group. Now that's going back to over a decade, 2008 or 9, and so fast forward a little bit, and we think that confused things as we grew because we did a series of acquisitions. We became something different than we were at the time, and so this is an opportunity to kind of right size the business and put the right divisions together that have the similar focuses and whatnot.
Now let's go over the divisions. I believe, and I maybe more than six. There are six divisions I think that we're talking about here, and the big ones we'll talk about. Let's go over first of all one of those divisions, which is one that you haven't named yet, because the rumor that we all reported maybe too soon. I'm sure you thought so. It was that you were going to merge Pro Travel International and Zell Travel, effectively coming up with a new name for those. And that indeed is one of the divisions. Let's talk about why you're putting those two mega agencies really into one of these divisions and how it will work.
Sure. We don't have the answers to that yet. We wanted the advisors themselves, who are the lifeline of that business, to be involved in that decision-making process. And so we're soliciting that feedback now. And that will, at the end of the day, we want to be the best to our advisors so they can be the best for their clients. And we want to put our best foot forward. So in terms of resources, processes, tools, support, technology, what have you, we want to put that together in one place to support those advisors that just do a marvelous job with their traveling clients. And so yet to be named, lots of discussion going on, as you can imagine, lots of spirited input, which we welcome, and we want to make sure this is really not for us, but rather for the advisors themselves to kind of put our best foot forward when we come out of this down market. So this is probably something that you may have asked, why didn't you do this before? And I would ask the same question. So I think it's change is difficult in our industry, and I think albeit if we do it properly and we do it for the right reasons, we think change can be a positive thing. So we're looking forward to seeing what the outcome of this Pro Travel and Zell merger of sorts looks like. Well,
obviously they have. Maybe they're starting to come together a bit more because you started to have events that featured both of them. But the cultures of both agencies are they both have long histories and both different affiliations. And one is Virtuoso Pro Travel affiliated, and the other one is Signature, which is the Zell affiliation. I think I've asked you this before, and you said you're still not sure what's going to happen, but you do value the relationships that you have with those two consortia. Is it the same answer right now? You're still going to wait and see what happens?
It is, and again, in the spirit of getting the advisor feedback, we're having those discussions now. So we have a deep, long-standing relationships with both Virtuoso and Signature. We value them tremendously. I think back to your point, it's really about culture, right? And I think what I respect the most out of both of these businesses is the culture that they both have. Very similar businesses on paper, but in practice and personality, they are a little bit different. So we want to respect that. We want to maintain that. And we really just want to offer, I've said this before, is more arrows for their quivers as they go out and attack the marketplace and provide service to the traveling consumer.
Now, do you still see value in the Pro Travel International and Zell Travel brands?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think the intention here is not to take away anything, but rather to be additive. And so again, we're compiling all the feedback and so far I've received quite a bit of feedback, and it's all positive in nature, and generally people I think have been probably waiting for this for some time, and just a function of doing it, and we figure now is as good of a time as any. This was, by the way, probably to preview a question you're going to ask is this a result of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, you're right. I was going to ask that.
I would imagine that seems to be a common question. So the answer is no to that. However, we think that fast tracking this and getting it on track is now more important now than ever as we eventually exit out of this brutal time that we're seeing in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you have named a new CEO for this combined unit, Pro Travel and Zell. And who is that again? And just remind us. And
sure. So it's president. Mind you, the leader of the division is a woman named Angie Lycia. Angie's been with our company for well on a decade, and more recently ran all of our strategic partnerships at the Travel Leaders Group level, so now the Internova Travel Group level. And prior to that, ran operations effectively at the Travel Leaders corporate business, which is now part of Internova, or part of Altor, I should say, which I know we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah. Now, and then of course you do have presidents, co-presidents at Zell, and a president at Pro Travel. What will happen with those executives at this time, or it's still something to be decided, or will they just report to Alcia?
So Angie Lycia is
Angie. I should say Angie.
That's all right. Angie Lycia is running that division. So Monty Swaney and Cindy Schlansky, who are the co-presidents of Zell, and Becky Powell, who's the president of Pro Travel, will report into Angie going forward. Angie's working very closely with them. They're tremendous assets in putting all of this together, and the idea is to figure out, where they can focus their strengths more for the combined business, and offer, again, not in any way to take away from the advisors, but rather to add. So if Pro Travel has had access to this set of resources, they now have access to a broader set of resources, and vice versa for Zell Travel.
No, that's great. We'll see how that transpires. It's an interesting time. You have two of the largest agencies in the industry, and very successful. And again, as you said, and I noted, different cultures, but maybe they've now been together now in under different forms in the Travel Leaders Group, and hopefully you can combine them further and really get some benefit out of that. Let us turn to that corporate combination. Altor, this was something announced a couple weeks ago. You're sort of taking Altor, which is a large agency and that you own or co-own, and then you have Travel Leaders Corporate. Why did you make that combination under one different division under the Altor name? And I know that the head of Altor is now going to run that whole operation, that division, right?
Sure. Alexander Shemla's, we merged our businesses back in, years run by like weeks these days, but I want to say well on 3 years ago. We're getting on 3 years ago. So I think in August or thereabouts of 2017, we merged our businesses. Alexander's played a big part in the management and is a partner in the company as well. The Altor business is a completely full service agency with independent contractors in a leisure space, and specifically a specialty in the entertainment space. But a big chunk of that business is in the small to medium sized high service corporate area, which is exactly where the Travel Leaders corporate business aligns itself. So they've actually been working together for well on 2 years. This was a natural evolution for the two businesses to come together, and they share a strong commitment to providing customized travel solutions and services to that small to medium sized corporate client. So together, again, putting the best resources. If Altor didn't have access to certain resources and tools and processes that Travel Leaders Corporate had, and vice versa, they now have that. And we think that provides a much better and improved service offering to the corporate client.
Now, Altor, of course, it remains a member of American Express retail travel network, I believe. In fact, it may be the largest member of American Express. Will that relationship continue?
No intentions on changing that. Again, this isn't meant to be changed for the sake of change, but rather change for the sake of improvement. So, whereas some may say if it's not broken, don't fix it, and others may say if it's not broken, break it. But we're in the former camp of what works, and we're just trying to improve things across the board and make this a better company for ultimately for the traveler.
No, absolutely. And I know Altor is pretty critical to American Express, and
sure.
You have some relationships with American Express as well in a larger ownership venue. Now, the third big division, obviously, is what is now going to be called Travel Leaders Group, and that's going to include Travel Leaders Network, Nexion, and a lot of your smaller cruise and leisure agencies. The focus clearly is leisure, cruise, tour, resort sales for this unit?
Yeah, so that's going to be largely cruise and tour. That's the kind of natural focus of the businesses. That said, there's given the network background of that model, there's plenty of corporate business, but these are franchisees and consortium members, so they kind of have their own agencies and have their own set of clients. So some are certainly have some corporate travel. Same with Nexion. Nexion was a member, if you recall, back in 2010. We acquired both businesses, Nexion and Vacation.com. Nexion was a member of Vacation.com, which were owned actually, oddly, by two competing GDSs that we acquired them from. So that's a natural home for Nexion, is to be a member of the Travel Leaders Network. And so all things being equal, cruise and tour seems to be a big focus, but it's a pretty well-rounded agency, and the owned businesses that we have in there as well are largely on the specialty cruise side, with CrewCon cruise outlets and cruise specialists, to name a couple.
Yeah, no, and you're going to have John Lovell heading up this Travel Leaders Group. Shouldn't be that strange for John, since he seems to be done that a lot over the years in that network. And I assume you'll continue to have Roger Block leading Travel Leaders Network, and Jackie Friedman, of course, Nexion. Yeah,
the management team is fantastic in that group. This is probably the least amount of change, apart from just the naming piece, right? So the businesses that are affiliated with Travel Leaders Network now sit in this Travel Leaders Group business, and we think that's going to lessen the confusion, perhaps increase the confusion, perhaps in the short term, but we think long term that creates a lot cleaner of a story. And like I said, 2020 going back, would we have named this thing Travel Leaders Group to create the confusion? Probably not. So this is the idea of kind of reshaping the business as we move forward, and we're excited about that. So answer your question about Roger and Jackie and the rest of the management team, completely in place. John basically takes on a few more direct reports, but businesses that were already aligned with his anyway. So they're all a fantastic leadership team, and I certainly don't lose sleep at night over this group. Yeah.
No, well, and I really date myself, but I was there when Vacation.com was formed way back when, and by the merger of two competing consortia that were buying up other consortia. So
that's right. Yeah.
It's been a long time coming, and now we have it as Travel Leaders Group, and Travel Leaders Network is still one of the largest part of that. Let's just briefly review the other few divisions you have. I know you have one in Latin America, and let's talk about that one, and then the other parts of the other divisions that you're working on right now.
Yeah, so starting in Latin America, Corporate Travel Services is a full-service travel agency, so the name's a little bit misleading. Corporate Travel Services is again, in that corporate travel space, a good chunk of the business, a little bit more than half the business is in the small to medium-sized corporate area, focused based out of Mexico City, with a big chunk of their clients in Mexico, but focused in Latin America. The other half of the business, or a little bit less than half the business, is relatively evenly split between leisure travel and then independent contractors. So it looks a lot like our business in the U.S., but focused in the Latin American market. And there's a full-service management team run by a gentleman by the name of Jose Luis Castro, who run that beautifully for us. And that was an acquisition we made 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. And then you have a unit that's really going to focus on hotel collections and things like that, correct?
Yeah. Ponytail Exclusive Travel, again, an acquisition that we made, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. Years are going by, I swear. I want to say 2 or 3 years feels like a long time, but it goes by.
This year alone feels like a long time. So
it does. I know this week was a long month. So Ponytail we acquired a few years ago. It's basically a hotel platform, bed bank. It's now going to oversee the company's worldwide and select hotels and resorts platforms across the broader portfolio of Internova Travel Division. So while it has external clients in tour operators and other travel agencies, it will add the Internova agencies as an internal client, so to speak. But we're going to treat it like it's an external client with proper SLAs and whatnot. And we're excited to see what we can bolster the existing hotel programs that we've already built by having the Ponytail angle as well.
Well, I know that there's a unit Select Hotels and Resorts that is used obviously by Travel Leaders Network and a lot of your leisure agencies now as a higher end, hotel collection, hotel group that you have relationships with those folks, and it's been growing quite substantially. So
Yeah.
that's going to be a good thing for all of them.
Yeah, so Select is going to remain in place. The entire team is in place. What we hope to do is supplement it with some of the relationships and products and technologies that Ponytail has in its core line of business, and we, again, in the spirit of offering more to our advisors to more weapons for their arsenal.
No, great. And what other divisions are we missing here?
So one more. Last but not least, certainly is a MICE business, our meetings and events business, based out of the UK. It's going to remain as is and continue to service its clients. It's also an internal product that our corporate and IC and franchise businesses can all lean upon should their clients request any meetings and event services. So that's run by a woman named Sue Gill out of the UK, and that will remain largely unchanged as well.
Okay, so that's the restructuring with Internova. Now, I believe when we talked earlier, you said you really came to a finalization on this sort of at the beginning of the year, and we're just kind of waiting to roll it out. And then, of course, we all got hit by a sledgehammer with COVID-19. Yeah. And obviously, as we emerge from this crisis, how do you think this restructuring will kind of position Internova and its various travel agency divisions to emerge even stronger after this whole thing subsides, hopefully?
Yeah, I think we'll be in a position of strength, I think, from relative to our prior structure. And I think, I'm knocking on wood here, but with any luck, this is, the worst is behind us, and we're going to get back to some version of normal. And so I think, with improved processes, improved support, I think that we'll be in a position of reaching profitability in our member agencies and our independent travel advisors reaching profitability that much faster as we give them the tools to be successful more quickly. So some of it's a little bit out of our hands. We're doing all the right, taking all the right steps with our supplier partners and talking about what's going to come back first and marketing the appropriate content for our advisors. And again, a lot of this is feedback from our advisors and agencies, and without that group of producers, we don't have much of a business. So a lot of it revolves around our agents and our agencies, and so we're taking their lead on what they need to be successful coming back. So we think we'll put our best foot forward, and we're constantly looking at improving. So every day when we come into work, we want to be better than we were the day before, and we think that our advisors and our agencies are, we think, the best in the industry, and we need to be match that level of expertise and to support them as best we can.
No, and hopefully you will be well positioned as we get through this. And talking about that, obviously you've seen significantly reduced revenue sales due to COVID-19 crisis. And I assume, this reorganization, this restructuring means you have plans in place to survive this downturn. And I guess you have a commitment from your backers, your financial backers, to carry through the crisis. What have you done to kind of make sure you're going to get through this and you can survive with enough cuts and create enough synergies and economies of scale to get through to next year?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a downturn just like everybody else. This is, travel's unique. One of the advisors that I spoke with talked about travel is a little bit, we're starting in a negative position and just getting back to kind of flat is the goal right now, and then move forward. But unlike a restaurant that you ate at last week, you don't go back and get your money back. Whereas cancellations and whatnot, put us in a position where we're behind. So we've done everything across the board. I don't even like to say we've done a great job, because largely it concerns people's employment. But what we've done is we've taken a position where we're protecting the long-term outcome of the business, and as things start to recover, we're here to recover, to absorb the recovery, and we're a going concern. So we've done everything possible from the typical furloughs and all the unfortunate stuff, and trying to get our operating expenses and our cash flow. It's a cash flow game right now. So relatively easy arithmetic in terms of X amount of cash, and this is your monthly burn. So we're keeping everything intact, though, where we're trying to communicate as best we can to our advisors, agencies, with the guidance on weathering the storm. We have daily communications and webinars, and that's the happy medium. This is the business we're in, is to provide support to agencies and member agencies and advisors. So we're keeping the necessary lights on to provide. I think we've done a very good job in this perspective in terms of balancing the cost versus the service. And again, I think anything from business planning to the CARES Act, unemployment compensation for independent contractors is what we've been focused on. And I think our team's done an amazing job at providing the advisors with the information that they need to get through this.
No, absolutely, and that's important as an organization. Now, I guess one of the questions I didn't have for you earlier was, are you seeing a glimmer of hope in bookings advance for the end of the year or for 2021 now? Are we starting to see, some hope with this, and people are starting to think about traveling again?
It's I'd be speculating if are we seeing anything? I mean, I think last week was probably better than the week before, but of volumes that aren't anything to get excited about quite yet. That said, we'll take positive momentum and positive trending wherever we can get it, and hopefully that continues, and hopefully it speeds up. But I would say, I wouldn't say that I have a timeline for when. I mean, it would be a guess, and I think there's a lot of guesses out there. Some are more optimistic than others. I'm probably somewhere in the middle. But I think, as long as we can continue this trend in the right direction, we'll get through it, and it's a function of time. A lot of it's, like I said earlier, out of our control. And so we're doing the bits and pieces that we can control and hanging on tight for that revenue recovery. So, we're seeing some positive trending. I'd like to see that snowball in a safe manner, though, not in an irresponsible way. And so if we can get people back on airplanes and we feel safe about that in hotels, that's what we're hoping for here. But I don't have I wish if I had the answer to that, I'd tell you what, I'd be doing okay in life, because I'd be predicting the future. But that's really the hardest part for me, at least personally. I think for the rest of the business is, if we just knew when the recovery came and at what trajectory, we could plan for it. But the not knowing is the really hard part. So I wish I had a better answer for you and a view in a window into the future, but I unfortunately don't have a better indication than anybody else.
Well, I see the vaccine on the shelf behind you there, so maybe you could share it with all of us, right?
Yeah. As soon as that cures, I'll pass it around. No problem.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to get across to the market about this new strategic initiative in creating Internova Travel Group?
Yeah, I think to me this makes a lot of sense. I think to a lot of people it makes a lot of sense. There's never a time where it's less awkward than another. So the plan was to pull the plug on this plan this year, and so we're going to continue with that. And we thought about holding up and seeing if now is the right time, but we actually think it's more important now than ever. So in addition to that, I want to share just how impressed I am by the resilience of our people and our staff and our advisors. And they've faced this whole thing with grace and determination, and I'm just continually impressed with the creativity and strength. For example, the Travel Leaders Corporate division, now part of Altor, is they put some of their advisors to work where they were booking. They book travel, so they were booking COVID tests, and so they kept their people working. They kept their people under the umbrella, and they're now moved on to the next thing. So I just think that's an example of many where we're just taking advantage of all the educational opportunity. We've kept the spirit of travel alive and their clientele, and they've connected and supported each other. So I just have every confidence in the ability to recover when this all subsides, and I'll look forward to it, and I'll look forward to celebrating with all the folks under the Internova Travel Group umbrella.
Fantastic. Well, JD, thank you very much for taking the time to explain this new strategic initiative, the creation of Internova Travel Group. So yeah, I for one, as an editor, I was always saying Travel Leaders Group, Travel Leaders Network, and it was a little confusing sometimes, and having to figure out what we were talking about and what programs applied to what entities within the Travel Leaders Group. So Internova that may help at least me, and of course I know that was all about my problem with the editing, not your.
It's all for you, James.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you do for us. JD, again, thank you. Stay safe, stay well, and hopefully we'll see you live in person at some point in the near future.
I'll look forward to it. Thanks, James.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.